Friend, you didn't just dream them up, you discerned them. Before a face ever appeared, before a name ever echoed in conversation, your spirit felt a stirring, something sacred, something set apart. This wasn't fantasy, it was foresight. And now you've reached the moment where that quiet knowing is colliding with God's undeniable confirmation. Someone special is coming, and heaven has already signed off on the introduction. I feel the urgency to say this prophetically. You are not preparing for just another relationship. You're preparing to recognize divine alignment, the type of connection that's not forced, not fabricated, but formed in the heart of God Himself. When Genesis 22 says that God brought Eve to Adam, it was not a coincidence. It was covenant in motion. God didn't send her while Adam was distracted or chasing validation. He sent her when the man was whole enough to recognize the divine in her presence. And now God is doing something just as intentional with you. Let me affirm this with holy boldness. You are not late and you are not forgotten. What you've called a delay, heaven has labeled as divine preparation. The detours, the long nights, the seemingly unanswered prayers were never indicators of absence. They were proof that God was building something sacred beneath the surface. Psalm 37:4-5 tells us to delight ourselves in the Lord, and He will give us the desires of our heart. That doesn't mean He hands over idols. It means He places within us the very things He plans to fulfill. The desire for a God-written connection isn't carnal, it's covenantal. You've been hearing whispers for a while now, small confirmations, subtle signs, maybe even moments in prayer where the presence of someone you haven't met yet felt closer than ever. Don't dismiss those moments. That's how heaven speaks. John 10:27 reminds us, "My sheep hear my voice." You know when something is off, and just as surely, you'll know when something is right, when it's God. Peace isn't just a feeling, it's a compass. Let's talk about why it had to take this long. God wasn't punishing you with time. He was purifying your expectations. He was stripping away false ideas, uprooting unholy ties, and healing wounds that would have bled onto a blessing if sent too soon. God never sends someone to rescue what you haven't surrendered. The one He's preparing won't patch your brokenness. They'll walk beside your healing. That's the beauty of a spiritually aligned connection. It doesn't complete you. It complements the call already active in your life. And here's something powerful to hold on to when that person shows up. They won't interrupt your purpose. They will amplify it. The right one will not bring confusion. They won't ask you to shrink your fire, question your identity, or compromise your intimacy with God. No, when heaven sends someone, it's because you're finally positioned to receive what God whispered when no one else was listening. So, what's next? You stay alert in the spirit. You listen with your soul. The right one won't just look right. They will sound like something familiar because your spirit already met theirs in prayer. The impression you've been carrying wasn't delusion. It was divine disclosure. Your heart was being tuned to the frequency of someone already being formed for your future. Heaven doesn't play guessing games. It confirms, it aligns, and now you're on the edge of evidence. Genesis 2:23 wasn't just Adam speaking out of awe. It was the language of recognition. This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. You'll feel that same divine clarity when it's your moment. The wait is about to make sense. The prayers are about to be answered. The quiet impressions are about to meet visible confirmation. Someone special is coming, and your spirit already knows why. Beloved, some encounters don't begin with a handshake or a conversation. They begin with a stirring deep in your spirit long before your mind catches up. You feel it before you name it. A presence enters the room and something within you leans forward. Your heart responds before your eyes even register why. That moment is not confusion, it's confirmation. God designed your spirit to recognize what your senses haven't yet seen. This kind of recognition doesn't originate in logic, it flows from the Spirit. Romans 8:16 says that the Spirit Himself bears witness with our spirit, meaning heaven's whisper doesn't wait for human explanation. Your soul is capable of discerning divine signals even when your understanding hasn't yet decoded the reason. That's why sometimes you find yourself drawn to someone without effort, as if your spirit already knew the assignment connected to their name. There are moments when your discernment activates before your intellect catches up, and that's by design. The presence of the right person can echo something familiar, not because you've met them before, but because your spirit has already been introduced to the call they carry. The Bible says in Luke 24:31 that the eyes of the disciples were opened and they recognized Jesus, but he had been with them the entire time. They didn't see him clearly until the Spirit revealed what the natural could not perceive. That's what happens when God is in the middle of a connection. There is a knowing that surpasses explanation, a peace that outweighs the questions, a resonance that doesn't require rehearsed lines or shallow surface-level attraction. You may not understand it yet, but your soul does. God often speaks first in impressions, subtle, holy nudges that bypass the noise of flesh and speak directly to the spirit. And if your heart has felt that kind of sacred curiosity about someone, don't dismiss it. That pull may be a preview of divine purpose. You weren't created to navigate relationships blindly. You were designed to discern. The same God who formed you in the secret place also knows how to highlight someone who was shaped to walk with you. This kind of love isn't born out of desperation. It's born out of destiny. It doesn't push you to chase. It invites you to recognize. In 1 Samuel 18:1, it says Jonathan's soul was knit to David's, and he loved him as his own soul. That kind of soul knitting doesn't happen through surface-level knowledge. It happens in the spirit. Some relationships will make perfect sense on paper, but feel hollow in your soul. And then there are others that don't need a resume or explanation. They just carry weight. Love that originates from God carries a holy gravity. You may not be able to explain the why, but your spirit says yes before your mouth can speak it. And that's not emotionalism, it's revelation. You'll know you're encountering something divine when you stop striving to understand and simply start stewarding the moment with prayer. Don't rush to define what God is still unveiling. Let the Spirit finish what it started. If you sense something sacred is unfolding, be still enough to let your discernment lead the way. Spiritual recognition doesn't demand immediate clarity. It demands surrendered awareness. Some people are sent into your life not to distract you, but to awaken you. When that happens, your spirit will feel like it's come home, even if your head is still trying to find the address. That's the mystery and beauty of divine alignment. It's not forced, it fits. And the more you walk with God, the more you learn to trust those quiet, weighty yeses that rise up in your soul when something or someone is heaven-sent. So when your heart leans forward and your spirit stands at attention, don't rush to dismiss what you can't define. Remember, Jesus walked with the disciples before they recognized him. You may be walking beside someone whose purpose is tethered to yours, and you won't fully realize it until heaven opens your eyes. Some recognitions come slow, others arrive like lightning. But when it's divine, it will never be empty. It will carry something eternal. And when that moment comes, when your spirit knows before your mind can explain, pause. You may be standing in the presence of someone heaven assigned, friend. Before love ever knocks on the door, God builds the house that can hold it. And that's exactly what he's been doing in your life. What felt like delay was design. The silence wasn't abandonment. It was the sacred sound of a God who was building you in private for what he's planning to reveal in public. You weren't just waiting for someone to show up. You were being sculpted, matured, and refined, so that when they do, you'll be ready to meet them from a place of strength, not striving. There's a divine beauty in waiting that most people overlook, because culture teaches you to chase, but the kingdom teaches you to become. God wasn't holding back to punish you. He was holding you close to purify you. Isaiah 40:31 reminds us that those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. Strength doesn't come from rushing. It comes from resting in God's timing. And during this season of waiting, you were being renewed in ways you didn't even recognize. Every tear you cried in silence, every moment you surrendered your will for his was doing something far more eternal than your emotions could grasp. You weren't just preparing to meet someone, you were aligning with your assignment. God doesn't match you based on what you want. He aligns you based on what you're called to carry. That's why he took his time, because love can't carry you if you haven't first let God anchor you. And so, in the stillness he worked, He broke cycles of desperation that would have caused you to settle for the familiar instead of waiting for the ordained. He walked you through healing, not just so you could say you're healed, but so you wouldn't expect another person to be your healer. Your healing wasn't a delay in romance. It was protection from idolatry, because God never intended for anyone else to take his place in your heart. That kind of preparation is holy. James 1:34 says, "Let perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." That's what the wait was about. Not just romantic timing, but soul maturity, emotional clarity, spiritual discernment. You had to learn the sound of God's voice without confusing it with the noise of your desire. You had to become someone who could recognize divine alignment when it arrived and not sabotage it with unresolved wounds. In the quiet, God was whispering purpose into your identity. He wasn't just preparing you for someone's hand. He was preparing you for someone's destiny. Because who you're walking with next isn't just someone to love, but someone who complements the calling on your life. And that kind of relationship doesn't thrive in immaturity. It breathes in surrendered wholeness. That's why God waited until you weren't begging for love, but believing for alignment. Lamentations 3:7-25-26 tells us, "The Lord is good to those who wait for him, to the soul who seeks him. It is good that one should hope and wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord." This kind of waiting wasn't passive. It was pregnant with promise. It was filled with lessons, discipline, and divine preparation. And now the version of you that's standing today is not the same person who once cried out in longing. You're walking with clarity now. You're leading with peace. You're loving from a place of identity, not insecurity. God aligned your character with your calling because he's faithful not just to your desires but to your destiny. He was never trying to frustrate you. He was trying to free you from the patterns, the wounds, the fears, and the lies that told you weren't worth a love that mirrors heaven. Now, you're not just ready for romance. You're ready for partnership. You're ready for someone who doesn't complete your story, but joins it because you've already let God write the foundation. So if you're sensing that heaven is about to release someone into your life, don't just look for attraction. Look for alignment. Pay attention to peace. And remember this, the person who's coming isn't showing up to fix what's broken. They're being sent to walk beside what God already healed. And you, my friend, were worth the wait. Sometimes the presence of the right person won't just stir your heart. It will awaken your assignment, because heaven doesn't pair people based on emotional thrill. It aligns lives based on eternal purpose. When God sends someone into your life, it's not merely to satisfy your longing, it's to stir something greater. The person God has prepared for you isn't arriving just to hold your hand. They're coming to help you hold the vision he placed in your spirit. You weren't created for casual connection. You were made for covenant collaboration. That's why your spirit won't settle for surface-level bonds anymore. There's a deeper call now, a holy hunger not just for companionship, but for divine contribution. Amos 3:3 asks, "Can two walk together unless they are agreed?" This is more than a question. It's a blueprint. Agreement isn't just about preferences. It's about shared vision, mutual pursuit, and spiritual synchronization. And when that happens, you'll feel it. Not in the butterflies, but in the boldness to believe. Again, God isn't just writing love stories, he's orchestrating kingdom movements. And the person he's sending to walk with you carries more than affection. They carry alignment. Your calling will no longer feel like a burden you carry alone. It will become the blueprint you build together, because true kingdom love doesn't distract from your assignment, it doubles it. When the right one arrives, the fire on your altar won't dim, it will blaze higher. That's the mark of divine connection. Ecclesiastes 4:9-10 speaks to this truth with clarity. Two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. This isn't just about emotional support. It's about momentum. The right relationship becomes a force of movement, lifting you, pushing you, pulling the best out of you. God will not send someone who competes with your calling, but someone who complements it, covers it, and calls it forth. You may have experienced relationships that made you feel smaller. You might know what it's like to shrink so someone else could feel comfortable. But this next chapter isn't about minimizing. It's about multiplying. Kingdom love doesn't require you to hide your oil. It encourages you to pour it freely because the one coming will not be intimidated by the light in you. They'll be inspired by it. And in that shared fire, your purpose will not just survive, it will flourish. Let your discernment be sharpened in this season. Don't just ask, do they make me feel good? Ask instead, do they recognize what God placed in me? And are they willing to build with it? Romance can be birthed in infatuation, but purpose-driven relationships are built in intercession. The one God sends will know how to pray with you, not just play with your emotions. They'll lock arms in the spirit and war with you for what God promised. That's the kind of connection heaven honors. Matthew 18:1-19 affirms this with authority. If two of you on earth agree about anything they ask for, it will be done for them by my Father in heaven. Agreement is spiritual power. It's not about similarity. It's about spiritual synergy. When God unites you with someone who mirrors your mission and fuels your faith, things begin to break open, not just in your heart, but in the heavens. Doors unlock, assignments accelerate, territory expands. Because when two truly agree under God's purpose, the enemy cannot withstand their partnership. Don't be surprised if the person God sends doesn't look like your preferences, but instead carries your prophecy. Don't overlook someone who carries quiet strength and spiritual maturity in favor of someone who only offers charm. This next connection isn't about surface, it's about strategy. You're not just called to love, you're called to lead. And heaven knows exactly who's meant to build beside you. This is more than a relationship, it's a release. A release into deeper trust, stronger obedience, and clearer vision. The one who's coming isn't coming to complete you. They're coming to co-labor with you. And as your hearts move in rhythm, your purposes will converge like rivers heading toward the same ocean. When it's God, it won't just make you feel seen. It will make you move not away from the throne, but closer to it. You see, some of the most dangerous detours in your destiny don't start with a storm. They start with a smile. And that's why in this season, you cannot afford to lean on your emotions. You must let discernment take the lead. Because while love can be beautiful, it can also be blinding when it's driven by unmet desires rather than divine clarity. Not every hello deserves a response, and not every connection is heaven-sent. That's not fear speaking. It's wisdom sharpened by spiritual maturity and shaped by holy caution. The enemy isn't creative. He's a counterfeiter, and if he knows God is sending something real, he will try to deliver something similar. He's not after your heart, he's after your alignment. He doesn't mind if you fall in love as long as you fall out of purpose. That's why discernment must rise above excitement. According to John 4:1, we are instructed to test the spirits to see whether they are from God, because not every open door is a divine one. Some are distractions dressed in opportunity. Some carry charisma but lack Christ. Your peace will always tell the truth before your passion does. Emotions are loud, but peace is precise. Discernment is heaven's filter. It doesn't just ask, does this feel right? It asks, is this sent from God? You see, a true connection doesn't pull you away from God. It pulls you deeper into His presence. If it's draining your spirit, if it's clouding your vision, if it's rushing you, when God says, wait, it's not from Him. The peace of God isn't a vague feeling. It's a boundary line that keeps you from crossing into emotional confusion. Philippians 1:9-10 reminds us that love must be accompanied by knowledge and depth of insight so that we can discern what is best. Counterfeits don't always come with red horns. Sometimes they come with red roses. But the fruit will always tell the truth. Proverbs 3:5-6 commands us to trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. That means we don't evaluate people by how they make us feel, but by how they align with what God already said. If their presence brings more confusion than clarity, more compromise than conviction, that's not your answer. That's your warning. God is not the author of confusion. When He sends someone, it won't be chaos wrapped in charm. It will be confirmation wrapped in peace. If you're constantly second, guessing whether they're from Him, pause if you're being rushed into something your spirit isn't settled about. Pause. If red flags are present, don't repaint them green. Don't override what the Spirit is whispering just because your emotions are shouting. Discernment may seem quiet, but it is the loudest form of divine protection. Even Jesus warned his disciples to be watchful, not just loving, because love without wisdom can lead you to places God never intended you to go. Just because someone uses spiritual language doesn't mean they have spiritual substance. There are people who can quote scripture but won't live it. People who speak in tongues but don't walk in truth. That's why discernment isn't optional. It's essential. It is your spiritual guardrail, your divine compass, your holy shield. Some of the most costly decisions we make happen because we confused chemistry with covenant, because we let loneliness speak louder than the Holy Spirit. But in this hour, you have permission to wait. You are not late. You are not behind. You don't have to force what heaven hasn't confirmed. When it's God, it won't require you to diminish your discernment to keep the connection. You won't have to beg for peace or ignore the whisper of warning. What he sends will never make you question who sent it. Trust your spirit when it's unsettled. Honor the no that doesn't make sense yet. Let discernment guard the door like a warrior with sacred instructions. Your purpose is too precious to be compromised by a counterfeit. Your destiny is too divine to be delayed by deception. When God brings the right one, it won't just make sense in your heart. It will align with heaven's blueprint. So wait not with fear, but with fierce discernment, because what's coming doesn't need to be chased, only recognized. Some connections don't begin with a conversation. They begin with a knowing, a flicker of familiarity, a tug in your spirit, a moment in worship where a name or face you haven't even seen in real life feels strangely close. It's not infatuation. It's not fantasy. It's divine memory surfacing from a place deeper than your intellect, because before your eyes saw them, your spirit had already recognized them. And no, that's not delusion. That's revelation born in the secret chambers of your relationship with God. You see, when heaven intends to bring someone into your life with purpose, it doesn't always wait until the introduction to start preparing you. Sometimes God whispers in fragments. He gives glimpses, dreams, inner impressions that bypass logic but awaken spiritual memory. It might come as a passing thought that keeps returning, a repeated dream that refuses to fade, a presence you can't explain but feel drawn to pray for. That's not your imagination running wild. It's your spirit responding to something your soul was built to carry. God doesn't deal in confusion. He deals in preparation. And sometimes spiritual recognition is a form of divine groundwork. 1 Corinthians 2:10-12 reminds us that the Spirit searches all things, even the deep things of God. That means your spirit is in sync with what God has planned. Even when your mind hasn't caught up, the Holy Spirit isn't bound by time. So what you're sensing might not be for today's explanation. It might be for tomorrow's manifestation. Joel 228 speaks of dreams and visions being poured out, and those prophetic whispers often serve as previews, not to torment you with delay, but to anchor you with assurance. When God knows your heart is sensitive, He plants seeds of recognition before the harvest arrives. That's why some people feel familiar even in first encounters. It's not coincidence, it's alignment. Your spirit knew something was coming, and now the evidence is showing up in the physical realm. This knowing is not meant to create obsession. It's meant to cultivate expectancy. You weren't given this glimpse to chase a person. You were given it to stay rooted in promise. Genesis 24 tells the story of Rebekah being the answer to a servant's prayer before he even finished speaking. That kind of alignment doesn't happen by chance. It's orchestrated by a God who reveals purpose before He reveals people. And that same divine precision is shaping your story, even when time stretches long and silence lingers. What God showed you doesn't fade. It clings to you like a holy echo. You've tried to forget it. You've questioned it. You've doubted your own discernment, but it keeps returning, not with anxiety, but with a calm reassurance that something is coming. Something or someone you didn't invent in your imagination, but received in your spirit long before they ever entered your life. There's a reason it feels so personal, because heaven is not vague with those who walk closely. You're not making things up. You're tuned in. You've learned to listen in the quiet places where God plants mysteries wrapped in peace. And those mysteries, those sacred nudges, don't come to tease you. They come to teach you to trust before you see. Sometimes the most real things are the ones you can't explain to anyone else, but your spirit recognizes it. You feel drawn, not desperate, anchored, not anxious, and even when no one else understands, the confirmation inside you grows stronger. That's not emotional fixation. That's divine calibration. Your soul is lining up with a promise that already bears your name and theirs. So don't dismiss the glimpses. Don't bury the dreams. Don't silence the quiet knowing just because the timeline hasn't aligned yet. What God revealed was not meant to confuse. It was meant to prepare. You're not imagining it. You're remembering it. Because somewhere in heaven, a moment was already written. And soon the one your spirit has whispered about will walk into view, and your knowing will finally meet its evidence. Sometimes it's not the absence that's painful, it's the mystery of it. You feel something is coming. Someone is destined and yet nothing seems to move. But I came to remind you, not every delay is a denial, and not every silence is abandonment. There are seasons when God shields what's sacred, not because it's missing, but because it's maturing. That person your spirit has sensed. They're not absent, they're preserved. Isaiah 40:92 speaks of being hidden in the shadow of God's hand like a polished arrow kept in a quiver. That's not punishment, that's preparation. It means heaven is shaping someone in private, so when they appear, they carry power, not wounds. You see, love isn't just about finding the right one. It's about becoming the whole one, so two healed people can walk in unity. That kind of relationship requires refinement behind the veil, away from applause and expectation. It's holy work done in the unseen. If you've ever wondered why God kept them out of view for so long, maybe the answer isn't about you. Maybe they were the ones who needed the extra time, not because they were flawed beyond redemption, but because the calling on their life demanded a deeper surrender before connection could be safe. Song of Solomon 2:87 urges not to awaken love until it's ready. That's not a poetic delay. It's divine protection. God was guarding what would become precious to you so that when they arrived, you wouldn't receive a broken version. You'd meet someone whole, someone prepared by the hands of the same God who's been preparing you. Let that truth lift the weight off your timeline. Stop counting the months, the prayers, the questions that lingered in the quiet. Your assignment isn't to force visibility. Your assignment is to trust the process of preservation. Habakkuk 203 reminds us that the vision, though it lingers, will not delay forever. It will speak and it will not lie. That includes the vision you've carried in your heart about a person you haven't yet seen, but can't seem to forget. There's something powerful about knowing that while you've been healing, they've been hidden. While you've been maturing, they've been molded. God doesn't just bring people together by convenience. He brings them together by covenant, and covenant requires character. That kind of connection isn't microwaved. It's marinated in time, tears, and trust. Sometimes the silence of their absence was actually the sound of God working. What you didn't see wasn't evidence of delay. It was the echo of divine activity behind the curtain. They weren't ignoring you. They didn't even know you yet. But heaven knew both of you, and heaven was shaping their strength, refining their resolve, and preparing their heart so they could carry the weight of your calling together, not compete with it. This isn't about finding a perfect person. It's about being introduced to someone holy, and holiness takes time. So if you've ever felt like your prayers went unanswered because you couldn't see them, remember this. Just because something is hidden doesn't mean it's far. A seed is buried before it blossoms. A pearl is formed in silence. Diamonds don't develop in daylight. They're forged under pressure deep in the dark. The same way God hid Moses in a basket, David in fields, and Jesus in a manger, he has also hidden this connection until the appointed time. Why? Because what's sacred must be protected, and what's protected will one day be presented. So I dare you to keep your eyes on God, not on the calendar. Don't let the delay breed discouragement. Let it build discernment. Let it refine your faith. Let it deepen your trust that God has not forgotten you, and He certainly hasn't forgotten them. He's simply hiding them for the same reason He's been shaping you. Because when divine timing intersects with divine preparation, what emerges isn't just a relationship, it's a reflection of God's wisdom, grace, and goodness. And when that unveiling happens, it won't come in confusion. It will come in clarity, in confidence, in covenant. You won't have to guess. You'll know, because what was once hidden in mystery will be revealed in glory. Somewhere, while you were learning to worship through weeping and trust through trials, someone else was kneeling with similar prayers, longing for a partner whose heart would echo heaven. And without either of you realizing it, your tears were touching the same altar. The silence you both endured wasn't empty. It was divine strategy. God was answering both petitions in tandem, crafting you not just as a recipient of someone's love, but as the very answer to their prayer. This isn't just a story of waiting. It's a testimony of becoming. You were never just the one praying for love to arrive. You were the miracle being shaped in real time. The heartbreak, the refining, the unexplainable delays were not signs of distance from God. They were the signs of his hands working with sacred care. Ruth 20:12 speaks of being rewarded under the wings of God's refuge. You see, while Ruth followed God into unfamiliar fields, Boaz was being positioned. Neither of them saw it coming, but heaven had already orchestrated the moment they'd meet. That same orchestration is at work in your life right now. When God prepares an answer, he doesn't just think of one side of the story. He considers the entirety of the call. That means you're not just receiving. They are too. The one you've been trusting God for isn't just being delivered. They're being developed. Their growth matters just as much as yours, because divine love doesn't survive off chemistry. It thrives off calling. And that's why God never sends an unfinished answer to meet a ready soul. He brings two whole vessels filled in secret to pour into purpose together. It's easy to forget in your solitude that someone is also being stretched, molded, and refined for you. But Genesis 24:6-7 gives us a glimpse into this mystery. Isaac was in the field meditating when Rebekah approached. He wasn't busy searching. He was in posture. That's what makes heaven-sent unions so holy. They're not born of striving. They're born of surrender. When your spirit is anchored in God, he leads your connection without anxiety, without confusion, and without fear. So, if you felt invisible, know this. You're not being overlooked. You're being preserved. You're not late. You're being aligned. The one whose heart is interceding for someone like you may not know your name yet, but heaven does. And that's where the real weaving happens. In the realm where time bows to eternity, your journey and theirs are being stitched together by the same thread of divine intention. And when it's time, you'll see how God used every season to prepare a relationship that didn't just make sense, but made destiny. You're not just the fulfillment of someone's dream. You're the result of their discipline. You are the reward of their waiting just as they are of yours. 1 Peter 5:10 tells us that after we've suffered a little while, the God of all grace will restore, confirm, strengthen, and establish us. That's not just a promise of personal healing. It's a prophecy over what you and your future partner will carry together. Restoration for both, strength for the journey. Establishment in love that reflects heaven, not just emotion. You haven't been praying into a void, you've been planting into a future. The whispers, the hopes, the longing, they've all been laying the groundwork for a collision of purpose. This isn't about finally getting a relationship. This is about heaven releasing what was authored long ago. When your faith aligns with theirs, when your maturity mirrors theirs, when your submission to God dances in step with theirs, that's when the connection ignites not just affection, but assignment. And let me say this boldly, you don't need to perform for it. You don't need to chase it. You don't need to question your worthiness of it. Peace is holy. Peace is God's signature. Proverbs 10:22 reminds us that the blessing of the Lord makes rich, and he adds no sorrow with it. We believe that what is sealed in heaven will be revealed on earth. And we believe that when the moment comes, we will know not because of butterflies, but because of the stillness that speaks louder than any sign. So God, we rest in you. We wait with expectancy, not anxiety. We walk with confidence, not confusion. And we stand in full agreement with what you have spoken in the secret place. We call it done according to your will. In Jesus' holy name we pray. Amen. If this message has stirred your spirit, confirmed what God has already whispered to your heart, or simply given you fresh hope for what's ahead, I warmly invite you to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who's still waiting for their divine connection. Thank you for being part of this community. May God continue to guide your steps, guard your heart, and lead you straight into what He has already prepared for you. Music